So are you looking for some projects that you can easily make in an afternoon? They don't hardly cost anything to make, but they have super high sale potential. Well, you're in the right place. All right, so I've been seeing this picture floating around the internet and it's pretty awesome. Yes, it's a cutting board, but they have shaken it up, made something totally different out of it, and it looks great. I'm not exactly sure who made this. It looks like something that would come from the old PB, but since I'm not quite sure, kudos to whoever it is. Now, the first project in this video, I'm going to be trying to replicate this look. Now, yes, this will be a super simple project, but how it turns out will all be based on the grain of the wood. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So the boards that we saw in the picture, they were all made out of 3/4 inch material. For this demo, I'm going to be changing it up a little bit and using an 1.5 inch material. Okay, so let's take a look at this picture again. Okay, so you notice what gives it this super cool kind of flamey look. Well, it's that open wood grain. So whenever you go to pick out your material to use for this, you have to have plain sawed or flat sawed material. So just looking at the 2x10 that I have here, this is what I'm talking about. You'll be looking for this large cone-like grain. Another thing that's important to this project is how much of the heart content versus the soft woods that you actually have. And where this comes into play is that whenever you burn this, it's the soft woods that's giving you that really dark look. So anything that's kind of white here or yellow, that's going to be black. This more reddish tint here, that's full of resin. So it's really not going to darken up and burn. So if you can just kind of picture your soft woods as dark, it'll give you an idea of what it will look like whenever you're done. So now that you know what you're looking for whenever you're choosing your material, let's get to it. All right, so out of this board, I really like this big open grain here. This is going to look really good. And down here where we were at earlier, kind of in between these two knots, I really like the way that that looks. There's really not much of the cone-shaped grain in here, so I'm just going to skip this little section from now and use these two parts. But before we actually get to cutting on this board, what sizes are we going to cut to? Let's go ahead and get our shapes lined out. That way we'll know exactly what we'll be needing. So anytime that I'm making something like this, I just take a piece of 1/4 inch plywood. It's cheap. Usually have scraps of it laying around. Actually, this one I was just using as a dustpan before I started recording this. So yeah, it's scrap wood. Plus, if you want to replicate this, you're going to have to lay all of this out anyways. So if it turns out really well and you want to replicate it, you'll be set. So as you can see, this one I've already sketched out. And right now, these odd shaped cutting boards are in. So that's what we're going to do. So there's several different ways to make arches and curves and things like that, but the best way, pull out the old pocket protector and get your compass. You know that thing in high school geometry that you said that you would never use in your life? Well, they're actually really handy. And that's actually what I used to make this design. And the super cool thing about these cutting boards is that no two will be alike. And that's actually a good thing. So now with my first one traced out, for my second template, I'm going to make this one a little thinner. First, I'm going to decide where I want my handle to start. Since we're going with this misshapen look, I start my handle at 17 inches on the opposite side. This one I'll be putting my handle towards the center, and I want this one quite a bit smaller. First, I'll mark the circle for my hole, and don't like it. It's a little bit too big. So we'll just erase that and bring it in a little bit smaller. So now let's try this one. Much better. So I'm going to open this up a little bit, just to give me a little extra room here. And we're going to be doing a lot of sanding on this, so this is just kind of a rough shape. But once I have my circle there, a lot of this will be erased. Now you just need to decide how skinny that you want the neck to be. All right, so now that I have this laid out, and I can see where my corners are in relation to my circled top, I don't like the placement of my corners. I actually want to drop this down a little bit and make a longer handle. So again, another super cool thing about this project is you can do what you want. So we were at 16 inches. Let's go ahead and bring it all the way down to 14 on the right-handed side and 15 on the left. All right, now that we have this lined out, let's cut these babies out. If you notice, I do a lot of these projects with just a jigsaw. The jigsaw is one of the most underrated tools in an entire shop. Yes, there are several different ways that you can do this using a lot more expensive tools, but for me, jigsaw worked just fine. I'm going to leave this just so I don't break it. And I'll shape this up with a sander. I'm just going to knock off these little sharp edges. All right, there's our first template, almost. Funky shape. Hey, whatever's in. Now let's cut these holes and clean this up. Right, so now with our templates done, let's go ahead and start cutting some wood. I'm going to lay these out on my material kind of the way that I want it to end up looking. Remember, for this look, we want these rays to be going up. It makes it kind of look like a flame. And keep in mind whenever you're lining this out, that your white wood will end up being black. And then for my second one, that's going to be a little thinner. I want these rays to be more on one side. So I'm going to line it up about here. Now again, just like every other part of this build, this is just a matter of preference. And maybe that's why I like this build so much. It allows you to use your full creativity. How to cut these down to width, you can use your table saw or your jigsaw. Completely up to you. I'll go ahead and use the table saw just to knock off some time. Then we'll head back to the jigsaw and just cut our shape out like we did before. Since this piece is a little thicker, it may take a little bit more time. Whenever you're using a jigsaw, the secret is to just let the jigsaw do the work. Do not try to push this blade through the material. Just a little bit of pressure, and as the wood is taken away, the saw will move forward. Now that we have these roughed out to shape, let's go ahead and cut our holes out. Kind of looks like a little mini guitar. Meow, 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 meow. Oh, again, I'm using 2x material. This may actually be a little bit too thick for most people, but it's definitely going to be unique. Okay, so now that we have this roughed out, we need to do some sanding. And the sanding can be done by hand, it can be done using an orbital sander, or if you have a spindle sander, this would be perfect for that. So if you have one of those, pull that baby out. And if you don't, just use an orbital sander like I'm going to do. Then whenever it comes time to sand around your holes, you can either do that by hand, or you can use a little drum sander attachment. Alright, so now that we have these sanded down and in the shapes that we would like, now comes the fun part. Let's torch them. Okay, so we're really not going to go all crazy with this. Essentially, we're just going to be highlighting a certain grain. Now remember what I was saying about the softwoods? You can really see that here. The softwoods will get really dark, whereas the hardwoods will stay a lighter color. And that's exactly what we want. Now, if you're not comfortable using a little handheld torch, by all means, do not do it. You can actually get a very similar look using a black stain and then wiping it off. The softwoods will soak it up much quicker than the hardwoods. The one thing that we want to make sure not to do is to overheat our wood. If it gets too hot, it's going to start to bow or crack. Since I'm going to be painting part of this, I don't need to char all of the wood. So as you can see, I'm just highlighting the grain that I want. And then as far as how dark you want your handles to be, again, that's totally up to you. And then for this square one, I just cut it out of the scrap wood from the 2x10. Okay, so these things are turning out better than I even imagined. I actually like this thicker look, and the good thing is 2x10s, 2x12s, they're cheap. So we're going to let these cool down a little bit. I'll spray on a light coat of urethane, and then we'll get the sides painted. And this is actually a pretty cool look by itself. So just FYI, make some different versions of it. All right, so to finish this up, I'm just going to put a little bit of white paint on the sides. Again, this is one of those creativity things. You kind of do what you'd like, and we'll see how it's going to turn out. And a little personal fact about myself, I have a special ability to just look at paint and get it all over me. I don't know how in the world that I do it, but I do it. So for the rest of this video, you're going to be seeing some painted fingers. Does anyone else out there have this special ability? So I'm going to be experimenting around with some different painting techniques. And personally, I think that I like the blended look a little bit better than maybe the straight paint edge look. Really, either one's going to look awesome. Now, I said earlier that these are advertised as cutting boards. People really aren't going to be cutting on these because we're finishing them with paint and other types of finishes. So maybe you should advertise these as decorations or maybe serving boards. So while we're letting the finish dry on those, let me show you another super easy and super fast project that you can pretty much make for free. Okay, so this next one is super easy. Pretty much all that you need is a sander and a stick. Okay, so maybe it's a little bit bigger than a stick. I'll just pick this old branch up out of the woods. Now, if you have firewood or anything like that, this will be a perfect project. And what I'm going to quickly show you how to make is these bud vases. Now, I've seen these all over the internet, but what I really liked about this one is it looks like that the grain is kind of folding back onto itself. So let me show you how to do that. So basically you're going to have your log, or in this case, a big stick, and you're going to cut it into a slice really as thick as you want. This is just about 1.5 inches, but what we're going to be looking for is the heart of it. You know, it could be a branch, it could be the log itself, but we need this heart. And we're going to draw a straight line across that. I've already done that here in this little section of heart. So we'll make a cut here, and that actually looks like a lizard. Can you see it? There's the mouth, its eyes. Okay, paint fumes, something, but we're just going to make a cut here, and then we're going to start sanding this over. And I'll be using a belt sander for this. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so now that we have our little lizard cut in half here, also added a flat spot to the top, flat spot to the bottom, and I'm going to leave these edges natural. We'll be drilling a hole in one of these shortly. But first, let's get this folded over look. And to do that, we just need to round this back edge off. So now that we have this super cool contoured shape, let's go ahead and drill our hole. Now keep in mind that this is just a bud vase, so the hole really doesn't have to be that big. It does, however, need to be deep enough to hold a stem. Now the only thing left to do is to clean this up a little bit and add a finish. All right, so check it out. So from this old log that I found in the woods, we have this. Super cool little vase, super easy to make, dirt cheap, obviously, and looks awesome. But check this out. I also had this little piece, and I was kind of curious with the spalting that's in the end, kind of what it would turn out like. And from this piece of wood, made this. Now, honestly, that is awesome. I love that spalting in there. Super cool look that you really don't find anywhere. And the best part of all is free. Can't beat free. So if you're looking for super unique, high profit items, which you should be, unless you just want to make these as gifts, they make awesome gifts also, check out something like this. And check these things out. Like I said before, these things have turned out much better than what I could even imagine. They are super awesome, and I don't think that you would have a bit of problem selling these things. And the greatest thing about this project is I made this out of a 2x10. So right now 2x10s are $8.50 in my area. And with the right material and the right positioning, I think that you could get 7 or 8 out of each board. Right, so I've shown you just how easy that both of these projects are to make. So there's really no excuse to not give it a try. But there's always that one last step that you have to do. And you know what that is. Get up, get out, and get your make on. Till next time, we'll see ya. Imagine taking a pile of wood and turning it into something amazing. Now, imagine doing that without years of frustration. You do not need a fancy workshop, expensive tools, or years of experience. With Woodworking Kickstart, you'll build confidence and real skills in no time. So you can spend years making mistakes and learning the hard way like I did, or you can start building with confidence today. So join me in Woodworking Kickstart and let's get your journey started.